Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're about to listen to Weddings Done Right Radio, the how-to for the I do. This radio show came about because there's so much information out in the world about weddings and planning weddings, and really not too many alternatives to get good, solid advice from the experts in the industry. It's an insider's view of the business and the reality of weddings. I am your host, Jodi Harris, CEO of Fun at Sight and Sound Events, where I am broadcasting from the wedding capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Sight and Sound Events World Headquarters. So who is Jodi Harris? That's a good question. I own Sight and Sound Events with my husband, Pat. I've been in the wedding industry since the early 90s. I am a wedding entertainment producer, director, coordinator, disc jockey, MC, blogger, and now podcaster. I am a National NACE Professional Member of the Year award winner. In my career, I have successfully produced many weddings and continue to do so today. I am looking for your support. What you can do, ladies and gentlemen, is we have a variety of shows on different wedding topics, like catering and venues and event design and floral, that are available for download on iTunes and YouTube. So I want you to go ahead and do that. You can support us, again, by rating our show, writing a review, subscribing on iTunes. I want to thank Vegas Mike 00, who left a great review on iTunes. I appreciate the time you took to write the review. And if anybody who's listening to our show, you know what? I have an offer for you. I have a deal. If you write a review about the show, I will read your name. How about that? I will read your name on the show, just like I did with Vegas Mike 00. And if it's a great review, come on, I'm going to read it anyway. I'm going to read it at the end of the show. So definitely do that. Tell all your friends that are planning weddings, no matter where you live. And those fellow wedding professionals, you know, you might want to say, hey, I heard this great show on entertainment, or I heard a great show on finding a venue or catering. So share it. Share the love. And don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter at Jodi Harris on Twitter. That's Jodi Harris, Harris on Twitter. And I can tell you, boys and girls, it's going to be a crazy Twitter week next week. So if you're following me, it's going to be a lot of fun. We have a trip to New York planned and just all kinds of craziness. But let's get down to the business of today's show, because today's show is on entertainment. And that is a subject that I know a great deal about and that I'm very passionate about. DJ entertainment is one of the first priorities when booking services for your wedding, because it's a service that is so important to creating the mood of the reception. When guests leave a reception, it's very rare that they'll leave your party saying, wow, that broccoli was awesome. Oh my God, it was the best ever. But they will remember the DJ. They'll remember the way the night flowed and the party. And it's important to realize that you're competing with other people seeking the same service as you, especially if you're planning a reception during the busy season. So you need to begin your search as soon as possible so you can get, the really good talent. Most people will only need to hire the services of a professional DJ one time. So this show is going to be a great show for you. And I'm so excited to have as my guest, very excited here. He's on the phone at World Headquarters. It is Peter Merry. Peter Merry is a wedding entertainment director, and he is the founder of Merry Weddings. Peter has been helping couples in creating fun and entertaining weddings since 1992. He has provided DJ entertainment and served as master of ceremonies at wedding receptions across the United States. He currently serves his clients as their wedding entertainment director, which is a trademark, and we're going to talk about what a wedding entertainment director is, again, through his exclusive entertainment company, Merry Weddings. He's a national speaker on the wedding entertainment business and has presented at conferences around the world. And he hangs out with people like Mindy Weiss and Colin Cowie and David Tutera, Preston Bailey. He's actually worked with my girl crush, Jasmine Star, so he is awesome. And Peter is the author of the best-selling book called Best Wedding Reception Ever. And the book is a guide to creating unforgettably fun celebrations. And I got to tell you, it's a must. If you are listening to this show, you need to get it. And you can find the book on iTunes. Peter Merry, welcome. So cool to have you.
Thanks for having me, Jodi. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Cool. So, Peter, I'm so honored. I mean, we've known each other for such a long time. We've met at industry, conventions and conferences. Thanks again.
And we spent some good, memorable nights on party buses, too.
Yes, we have. Definitely. So, Peter, I want to start a little bit by having you tell everybody how you got started in the business.
Oh, that's a fun story. I was in my mid-20s, and I was enjoying a career in the field of high-velocity culinary arts. That would be fast food. And I decided that I could do something better. And so I started looking for career ideas. I had dropped out of college and not knowing which direction I wanted to go. And so I pulled out the yellow pages to search through the job descriptions and see what I thought might be a good fit for me, just as a way to get some new ideas for a new direction in my life. And made it to the D's. I wasn't qualified to be a dental hygienist, and so I kept going, and I found the disc jockeys. And I remember that in high school, when my friends were all partying, I was the one who would sit in front of the CD changer, dropping in new CDs and queuing up new songs because I've always loved music. And as I thought about it, I realized, it'd be a lot of fun to play music at parties and be the one who makes people get up and dance. And I'm not shy. I got a pretty good voice. I think I could do this. And I called several people, and within a couple of weeks, I was doing my first event. And a few weeks after that, I did my first wedding on July 4th of 1992 in Southern California.
That's awesome. Wow. That's a great story, Peter. So, disc jockey entertainers have come a really long way since back in the early 90s, right?
Oh, I would agree. In fact, I've spoken to some people who started DJing at events even as late as the 60s, but things have changed dramatically just in the last 20 to 30 years. I would say primarily the role of a DJ at a wedding or a special event was to play music and make people dance. Occasionally they would make some announcements. That was about it. In the 90s, they started evolving and recognizing that beyond just pressing play, they also were entertainers. In fact, one of the people who spearheaded that idea was a gentleman by the name of John Ross, based out of Connecticut. And he presented the idea that we are entertainers and it's our job to lead the fun. And he encouraged creating activities, games that would be done at bar mitzvahs, things of that nature. But also you saw more and more DJs getting involved in leading dances and just being a lot more involved in the actual fun portion of the day. And then I would say from about 2000 on, we started seeing a surge of DJs who were really starting to hone their skills as the master of ceremony, the MC, somebody who does more than just press play or make a general announcement, but really serves as a polished spokesperson for the bride and groom at the wedding reception.
Awesome. Yeah. And there were when brides hire DJs, what comes to mind for me is that there's 3 different types of DJs, right? You've got your nightclub DJ, you've got like kind of the mobile DJ, the guy who kind of does the wedding thing. But then you have what we call the wedding entertainment director. So kind of explain the difference between the 3 different levels that I just mentioned.
Sure. Nightclub DJs are DJs who probably have their primary skills in the area of mixing really well, and that means that they can mix from one song to another on beat. They can do mixes that change genres but still keep you dancing and keep you kind of going, wow, that was a cool mix, because that's more commonly seen in a nightclub atmosphere. They might have some MC skills, but their MC skills tend to be more focused on either getting people to the dance floor or getting them back to the bar to get those dollar shooters, if you know what I mean. And the thing that I've seen lacking with nightclub DJs is most of them don't understand the role of being an MC and really the details of what it takes to create a smooth flowing wedding reception. Now, having said that, one of the best nightclub DJs in the country who also does weddings is probably the price leader in our industry at entertaining at weddings, and his name is DJ Cassidy. If you go to his website, djcassidy.com, he's created quite a following for himself and worked for a lot of celebrity people to the point that he's now become a celebrity nightclub talent DJ. And he will go out and entertain at your wedding starting at $25,000 plus rental and travel costs. And in his ads, it says, no, that's not a typo. And it's not, because when Jay-Z and Beyonce got married, they brought in DJ Cassidy. But DJ Cassidy is a mix artist. He's not really an MC. He probably does very little in the way of announcing at all. The mobile DJ is the guy or girl who shows up weekend after weekend at a different venue, brings in their own gear, sets it up. They've planned out the event, some of them in minor ways and some of them in more extensive ways, to create a very fun evening for the bride and groom. Some of them tend to be really focused on just creating good dancing. Some of them are really focused on creating the most personalized event you've ever experienced. Some of them are doing add-ons. They're adding in a photo booth, they're adding in uplighting and things of that nature, and they're making it a full-scale production with your names plastered on the wall with lights. And so there's a lot more that they bring to the table, but they're a mobile DJ, and they just do a different venue every weekend, depending on how often they get booked. Mm-hmm. Wedding Entertainment Director is a new moniker that I came up with back in 2001, and we've been in the process of trademarking that since about 2006, right before I started getting my book out there, because we wanted to create a new level or a new brand of wedding entertainer, one that takes the best of what a DJ should be and takes the best of what an MC should be and puts them together in one package and give it a new title, a new brand called Wedding Entertainment Director. And so that Wedding Entertainment Director is somebody who's going to work with the bride and groom to create an extremely personalized event that's fun from the beginning to the end. The fun doesn't start when the dance floor opens. With the Wedding Entertainment Director, the fun starts when the guests first arrive.
And that's a great word, Peter, Wedding Entertainment Director. Because when you think about it, wedding entertainment is the DJ portion, and the director is really, I mean, that's what we do. We need to direct these people. And, I noticed, on the application to become a wedding entertainment director that there's a lot of responsibility. And at a wedding, there are at least 7 different services that need to be, fulfilled. Can you talk a little bit about them? Like, for example, you mentioned like personalization. Sure. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, you mentioned the word director. I got the term director because the term master of ceremony means the director of the entertainment at an event, the director that keeps everybody informed and keeps things moving. And very much like a film needs a good director, every wedding needs a good director. And so that's what the master of ceremony role truly is. That's why we use that word in the title. But the 7 services every wedding entertainment director delivers are comprehensive personalization, creative involvement, event direction, talented spokesperson, music programming, appropriate presentation, and quality amplification. And just to kind of expound on the first one, as you requested, comprehensive personalization is the idea that every moment in that celebration, every activity that's going to happen, every announcement that's going to be made, every song that's going to be played should be personalized to that bride and groom to create an atmosphere that feels like them. We don't want it to feel like every wedding that the guests have been to for the last 5 years. We want it to feel like Joe and Sally's wedding. And everybody who knows Joe and Sally will know that it felt like them. And so wedding entertainment directors will offer their clients a collection of music to look at to help them make choices to personalize the music, starting with the background music. And that could cover pre-ceremony, cocktail, dinner. Then they're going to give them suggestions of music for the special moments, like the ceremony music when the bride's walking down the aisle, or the reception music for the grand entrance, or for the cake cutting, or if there's going to be a bouquet and garter toss. Just suggestions to get them thinking creatively about how to add their own personal touch to each of those moments can be another layer of personalization. And then finally, for the dancing, they're going to give them a collection of music to choose from that's already great for dancing and allow them to choose what they like, cross out what they don't like, put a mark next to the ones that are the must-plays that they really want to dance to, and they're going to do some research to find out if there's any special gems that their family or their friends really love, and when you know what those songs are, you can play those at the right moment and create even more energy in the dancing of the celebration. And so the idea behind comprehensive personalization isn't just music choices, though. It's also working with them on a scripted agenda so that as every moment's flowing from one to the next, it has their fingerprints, their style, and their choices over it. And that can be tough because that means you're sitting in front of a client and you're going, here are your options. What do you want to create? And you work with them to create that instead of creating the same template wedding you've done every year for the last 10 years. So, I've met wedding DJs who've done 1,000 weddings, but they've really only done one wedding 1,000 times.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So it really involves spending time, and I use the word design session. That's my sexy word for my final meeting with my clients. It really take some time sitting down with them one-on-one. It's not, I think when we talk about the mobile wedding DJ guy or gals, we touched on earlier, I mean, they're all about the form. Here's the form, fill it out. Here, tell me what you want me to play, what you don't want me to play, and that's it. And I think really the personalization that you speak of really has a lot to do with getting to know the two people that you're working for.
Well, it's the difference, Jodi, between somebody giving them a form and saying, what's your song for your first dance? And now you've customized for their wedding because they've been able to choose the song they want for their first dance. And that's customization. Personalization says, tell me why you chose that song. Mm-hmm. And when you get to know why and you get to know who they are, it might lead to a unique way of delivering that song or introducing that song. It might lead to putting a recording of the two of them speaking to each other in that song. It might lead to a completely new idea that doesn't even happen during the first dance. But because the person meeting with them took the time to say, tell me why you chose that, and is getting to know them on a personal level, real personalization starts to occur instead of just standard customization, which is where you fill out a form and pick out which one you want to do and you're done.
Absolutely. I think that is so cool. I mean, I just took a great takeaway. Finding out the why that's great. And the brides listening, you should tell your DJ entertainer why you chose Lifehouse or, something like that. That's great, Peter. That's awesome.
I have to give credit. I have to give credit to it because it's a very simple question, why. But I watched a fantastic seminar presented by my good friend Bill Herman, who's one of my wedding entertainment directors, and Bill encouraged everybody who was listening to ask that question repeatedly, not only through your sales process but through your planning process, because the more you get to know the why, the more you get in touch with how to make it truly unique for them.
Absolutely. What about the creative involvement? That's another step. When we talk about creative involvement, what exactly does that mean?
Well, in some people's minds, creative involvement makes them think of interactive DJ, and their definition of that may vary from one person to another. But a lot of times when people hear involvement or interactive, they're thinking of somebody who's going to come out and make people do games or activities that maybe they don't want to do, and maybe it's kind of forced and it doesn't fit. And what creative involvement really is about is creating opportunities for the guests to feel like they're a part of the celebration rather than just sitting on the sidelines. And those activities should fit the bride and groom and fit their crowd because you're taking the time to find out. One of the best examples I can think of is there's an activity that's been done from time to time at weddings where the bride and groom are seated back to back and they're quizzed with questions that determine how well they know each other. And they hold up objects that represent each other, and it's kind of a newlywed game quiz. And it's a fun activity, but it doesn't fit for every couple.
Right.
And yet there are many mobile DJs who will do that at every single wedding, whether it fits for that bride and groom and their crowd or not. And the way a wedding entertainment director would work and the way they would include these items is they would find out what kind of environment they're looking to create, what kind of involvement they're looking to create, and then come up with the right method that would fit that particular moment. I watched a gentleman up in northern New York by the name of Jimmy Malone entertaining at a wedding. And Jimmy did a really unique idea that I thought was fantastic. I included in my book. He added a twist to that newlywed quiz. He provided slips of paper to the guests and invited them to write their own questions. And I presented that idea to select couples that I thought it would fit for, and not all of them picked it. But I would say in the last 5 years since I saw him do that idea, I've used it maybe 4 times. Because it had to be the right couple in the right group in the right setting. And when it worked, because it was the right couple in the right group, it was amazing. Wow. But if I tried to force it on everyone, it wouldn't fit, would it?
Got it. No, not at all. Not at all. And that's my next question. I mean, do you get a lot of couples that don't want that creative involvement?
Sometimes it happens, but the reality is most of them have been to weddings where they felt like nothing was being done to make them feel included until they got to the dancing. And so what I see by and large is they're open to ideas for creating some kind of involvement. They want their guests to feel like they're participants in their celebration, but their big concern is they want to make sure that it's done appropriately, that it fits them and their guests, and that it's not force-fed or enforced with guilt trip tactics. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite pet peeves about a typical mobile DJ would be trying to get the guests up to the dance floor to get the dancing started by saying, if you want John and Sally to have a long and happy marriage, then we need you to come to the dance floor right now.
Wow.
Okay, well, they wouldn't be there if they didn't want that. So what you're really doing is you're laying a guilt trip on their guests to force them to participate whether they want to or not. And so really it's about finding what's going to fit best for them. Many of the couples that I've worked for have a centerpiece, and they're open to some kind of creative way to give those away that creates fun involvement for 2 minutes or less. Some of the couples that I've worked with have opted to do an activity that involves when the glasses are tapped to make the bride and groom kiss. They give me in advance a list of other couples. And every time the bride and groom kiss, we call on somebody else and make them stand and kiss too. But it doesn't happen at every wedding. It happens for the ones that fit. And that's part of the reason why I wrote my book. There are 230 creative ideas in there, all designed to make it more fun and unique and memorable. And the bride and groom can pick the ones that fit best for them. But the point of doing them isn't to force people to do anything. The point of doing them is to give the guests an opportunity to do what they want to do most. Feel like they're a part of your celebration.
Absolutely. I just recently did one on Sunday night. I had a couple who got married, and they didn't want too much, involvement, but they had a buffet. And, it's not very exciting. 117 people, your table can go, your table can go, hey, your table can go. And being in the industry, this is an old trick, but the guests didn't know it, and they thought this was great. And I talked to the bride and groom in the design session ahead of time, and I said, how about we release the tables with songs that you guys like, some of your favorite songs. So figure we have 17 tables. What I'll do is I'll create little slips of paper. During the cocktail hours, people are starting to find their seats. I'll walk around to the tables, introduce myself, and tell them what we're doing. And I have to tell you, Peter, it worked great. The guests loved it. It was very subtle. They loved it. And it was fun. And it was fun, Peter, to see the actual couples, like when they heard Jack Johnson was one of the couple's favorite artists. I didn't have to say anything. I just stood there, had my mix master play a Jack Johnson song, and the people got up and walked over to the buffet. It was like the coolest thing. And the guests really enjoyed it. It wasn't cheesy.
Yeah, and the best part was it wasn't just announcing a table number, and it made it more fun because they're waiting on pins and needles to see who's going to get selected next. I did that at a wedding several years ago in Phoenix, and some of the guests actually got up and started dancing their way to the buffet.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's a really fantastic idea. And there's so many different ways to invite those guests to get in line for the buffet that just having the standard way of calling out a table number, which I hate, or having a catering person go and invite them to get in line, which I don't really like as much either. It just seems like a simple way to create a little bit of interaction, even if it's just seeing how well the guests know the bride and groom. I've done bride and groom trivia where if they think they have the answer right, I'll race over to them with a microphone. If they get it wrong, they have to point to a different table to go in their stead. Nice.
So there's so many fun ways, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And again, to get some fun ideas, Peter's written the book, and there's lots of things in the Best Wedding Reception Ever book. The next thing we talk about is event direction. And this is a big thing with me because I work with a partner. I always have a mix master with me, so I can direct the flow of the party. So Peter, talk a little bit about what event direction means.
Sure. Event direction is really boiling down the role of a master of ceremonies, but it's also about recognizing that there are major parts of being a master of ceremonies that aren't visible. An example I can give is a video that I've shown to bride and grooms over the years where bride and groom are announced into the room during their grand entrance. They come in and they stand center stage, and they're standing there, and they continue standing there, and the music continues playing, and they continue standing there, and the guests have been done applauding for over 40 seconds now, and they're still standing there. And the reason they're still standing there is because they just walk into a room of their closest friends and family cheering for them, and they don't know what they're supposed to do next. And that's not their fault. They've never done this before. But the person who was supposed to be directing for them, serving as their master of ceremonies, was really just merely making announcements. And when he announced them into the room and they couldn't figure out what to do next, he didn't take responsibility for that or even recognize the problem because he wasn't really directing the event. And so to juxtapose that idea, what I've done is I'll show couples another one where the bride and groom make a grand entrance, and as they come into the room, the bride's carrying a large bouquet. For some reason, a lot of brides do that on their wedding day. And this particular couple have decided they want to do their first dance right away. And as they make their way through the crowd, you see the bride just take a half step and drop her bouquet off on her sweetheart table. And then the two of them step out to the dance floor together. And as the guests are seated, they begin their first dance. And as a guest, when you're watching that, it looks so natural and so smooth that when she set the flowers down, you didn't even really hardly notice. But if she hadn't been told precisely to do that by me prior to the grand entrance, chances are very good she'd still be in the center of the dance floor, still holding that bouquet, and now it's time to start their dance, but she needs to get rid of it, and now we have an awkward moment while she tries to figure out what to do.
Yep.
And the point when I show those two videos to my couples is to point out that a lot of what goes into directing an event is stuff that's very rarely seen. It's the stuff that happens behind the curtain. It's the stuff that's backstage, and the guests don't even see it. What they do see is an event that flows so smoothly that they're sitting there going, man, this is great. I haven't been to a wedding like this in ages. And they can't put their finger on why. And that's perfect.
Yes.
Because then they go up and they give the bride and groom all the credit in the world.
Yes.
It's not about them giving credit to me or giving credit to you as their MC. It's about them recognizing that this one's really working well, but they can't figure out why. And that's the magic of being a good MC and doing all those little details behind the scenes. And so one of the things that we ask for in the Wed Guild when people are trying to verify this is we ask them to give us a list of all the details that they manage and keep an eye on and check on and communicate about with the rest of the team backstage leading up to the special events so that we can see how clearly they've thought out how they're going to direct this event. It's a way to measure how they're directing it. And one of the things that's probably the simplest way to bring this to light, imagine that the cake cutting gets introduced and everybody is told about it and everybody grabs their cameras and gathers around to watch the bride and groom cut the cake. And they're all there and they're all gathered and they're all ready to start, but all of a sudden somebody realizes something's wrong. There's no knife or cake server at the cake. Mm-hmm. Now, whose fault is that? Is it the catering manager's fault? Is it the coordinator's fault? Is it Aunt Betty, who is supposed to bring those and put them there, fault? Mm-hmm. It doesn't really matter at that point whose fault it is, does it? Right. But what does matter is the person who's supposed to be directing this event, the master of ceremonies, told everybody we were ready when we actually weren't. And so one of the things that you'll find very commonly on that particular kind of a checklist is double checking at the cake when you first arrive and are setting up and making sure that the knife and the server are there. And if they aren't, then you go contact the people that need to be contacted to make sure that it's there so that when you make that announcement later in the night, everything's where it needs to be and nobody knows that a problem had been averted.
Absolutely. Yes. Yep. Yes, yes, yes. I've witnessed that on many a wedding video that was edited here at Sight and Sound, where my editor had to cut around that because exactly what you just said. You know, I kind of think of that section when you talk about event director, I kind of approach it this way. I think of our bride and groom as Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. And I kind of think of me as Steven Spielberg. And that's what I'm trying to sell them. And if you think about it, Peter, really a wedding is almost, we said it in a prior show with our event designer, it is a red carpet event because you've got this beautiful, right? You got the beautiful dress, you've got the photographer taking photos, they're the stars. And it's up to us, the entertainment, to really lead them and direct them into what they're supposed to do to create that flawless event.
Well, that's the thing that's really challenging about our job, Jodi, because the truth is when you work in wedding entertainment, it's really not about you. Mm-hmm. You're there to provide entertainment. You're there to make it fun. But the truth is you're not supposed to be center stage. There's only a few rare moments that I'm ever, quote unquote, center stage at a wedding. Usually one of them is at the very beginning when I welcome the guests and introduce myself. And then from there on out, I'm shining the spotlight on the bride and groom and their closest friends and their family members all throughout the evening, because it's my job to make sure that they all get in that spotlight. It's not my job to steal that spotlight. And, it's also my job to make sure that I make them look as good as possible. And I was a guest at a wedding probably 10, 11 years ago, where as a guest, which, by the way, when you work in this industry, it's really hard to be a guest, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's like doctors make the worst patients.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there at this wedding reception, and the first dance ends, and the DJ announces the father-daughter dance and starts the song, and the bride's standing in the center of the dance floor all by herself. And after about 30 seconds of the song playing, the DJ realizes his mistake. And he gets on the mic and he says, "Where's Dad? Can somebody go find Dad?"
Oy.
Well, Dad was in the restroom. Now, was that Dad's fault? No. He didn't know the moment was coming up. It was his daughter's wedding, but nobody had shared with him the agenda. Nobody told him in advance when he needed to be stage left, ready to walk out and take his daughter's hand on the dance floor. And if somebody had taken the time to do that, you can bet he wouldn't have missed that opportunity. And so because that DJ wasn't really serving as a director, but merely just an announcer, he made the bride and groom look bad. And when Dad came back out, he restarted the song after making fun of Dad for not being there, which made Dad look bad. So it really is a role of us making them look good and doing things that will prevent them from looking bad. And it's a very challenging role to be the director, because when you're the director, you're typically not the star. You're helping the stars look amazing.
Is it harder would you recommend to our brides that they find two people to work with, like two-man team kind of situation like I do with my events?
I think it depends on the entertainer they're going to go with. I would say to provide great entertainment at a wedding reception, a two-man team can be very, very effective. I've done some fantastic weddings where I was serving as the DJ and the MC the whole night, but I'm kind of weird. I can multitask that way. Most men can't.
Right.
So I think it's really helpful that they make sure that the person they're dealing with, whether they're handling it themselves or handling it as a team, can explain how they manage all of that without having any downtime or any dead air. And if they can give a good explanation that shows you they have the skill and the knowledge, and they've got the references from the clients who rave about them to back it up, it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Right. Right. Because I just find it so much easier for me, my brand, the way I've built my brand, I just find it a lot easier for me to work with a mix master. And it affords me the luxury to be able to move around and find the missing elements and run in the back. And, I've had to pull moms out of the restrooms because you're right, Peter, you might tell them, hey, the mother-son dance is happening in like 3 minutes, and mom decides to get up and go to the bathroom. So, yeah, for me, it works really well. So tell me.
And most of the weddings I do these days, I do have somebody working with me as an assistant. And you're right. It does make a difference when you can stay where you need to be and send them off to go fetch something or catch somebody. Or you can leave them behind the booth to press play while you're out there making your announcement or something.
Absolutely. The other night I had to help a photographer out, and I left my DJ Mixmaster. It was cocktail hour playing music, so I could run down and open a gate so the photographer can get a really cool shot of the fountains at the Four Seasons. And somebody had to run and open the gate, and there was nobody around. And I'm like, well, I've got a Mixmaster. It's cocktail hour. I could slip away. He knows how to make a basic announcement if one needed to be made, but I knew where the bride and groom were because they were with me. So, yeah, it was what we do for our clients, Peter, what we won't do for them. One of the other things that I talk about a lot is the talented spokesperson part of the process of being a wedding entertainment director, MC. I always kind of envision Ryan Seacrest. To me, I think Ryan Seacrest is the perfect host. Not to steal from Jim Cerrone, but he is who is the perfect host in Indianapolis, Indiana, ladies and gentlemen. But is the perfect host. I mean, Ryan hosts American Idol. He comes out, he introduces himself, but the focus is really on those people that he brings out. What do you think, Peter? I mean,
well, I would say, first of all, you're absolutely right. Ryan Seacrest is a fantastic example, and one of the things that makes Ryan Seacrest so good is when he does what he does, he makes it look easy. But I guarantee you it's really not. For him to walk out on that stage know his mark, know which television camera to look into, make the kind of eye contact that's believable, talk with sincerity about the performance who just went on, bring him over, put his arm around him, and segue to commercial on time. That is extremely difficult work to pull off that well on live TV, and he is a true master of what he does. So when it comes to being a talented spokesperson at a wedding, the things that I think are most important for brides and grooms to keep in mind is that this person is going to be on the mic in front of all your friends and family. And everything they say and the way that they say it will reflect on you to your friends and family. And if you don't take the time to make sure that you vetted that person properly or auditioned them properly to make sure that they're going to do what you're expecting, you might get surprised. I've heard story after story from brides and grooms who were at weddings as guests, and they couldn't believe that the DJ was talking like he was an announcer for the Monster Truck Show on Sunday. Or he was talking in that fake DJ voice. It sounds so over the top and boisterous, but that's what he thought he had to do for the job. And nobody connected with it because it wasn't authentic. It wasn't real. And then the other part is the person who thinks it's now their show, so they take some time to maybe do some stand-up comedy or do some jokes about marriage that they think are funny, but really they're not appropriate. I heard a story once from a bride and groom about a DJ at a wedding who was making jokes during the cake cutting about his 3 ex-wives. I thought, well, that's a really scary anomaly. And then I was on an online forum with a bunch of DJs and saw an actual DJ bragging about doing that exact thing. I couldn't believe it. I was floored. So finding somebody who not only has the skill and the talent, but also the polish and the personality and the right attitude to serve in that position, it's extremely important. And one of the things that gets so overlooked when it comes to somebody being on the microphone at a wedding is that there is a certain amount of training that needs to be involved in order to serve as that highly polished, classy, yet fun spokesperson. And a lot of mobile DJs in the wedding industry, their only training is working as a wedding DJ. And they fail to recognize that they're a part of the broader performing arts world. And classes like stand-up comedy, public speaking, acting, improv, things of that nature, those kinds of classes can actually expand their talent and their capability and make them a much better and more polished MC. And yet so many of them don't bother to do those kinds of things because they don't think it's necessary. And so those are all things that we actually ask our Wed Guild members to submit as part of their application. We want to see what kind of advanced training they've had. We also want to see video footage of what they do in front of a wedding audience, uncut. And that's one of the encouragements we give to brides and grooms as well, because when you can see how they actually perform in front of a wedding audience, it'll give you a real flavor of what their performance style is, because they could be the nicest, most congenial person you've ever met, and then turn into somebody who has a big fake voice and maybe says things that are kind of crass because that's their persona at the wedding on the microphone. And if you don't see the actual footage to know what they're actually like, you could be in for a really, really bad surprise.
So what do you think of these YouTube? Because that's hot right now, these YouTube videos, these, testimonials from brides and grooms. A lot of DJs are video blogging right now. I mean, are they putting their best foot forward on these things, or are these real?
Well, here's what I would say. Anytime you see a really good promo video online, look past the footage of people dancing, because 99% of DJs out there can get footage of people dancing, even if it's not from one of their own events. Look past the footage of the bride and groom saying they did a good job, because that bride and groom might have only wanted somebody who created some fun dancing and might not understand whether or not they had a real MC directing their event or just somebody who made basic announcements. What you want to look for is the uncut moments in between things that happen. So when the first dance is ending and we're moving into the formal toast or the cake cutting, what kind of an announcement is being made there? What kind of things are being said? Pay close attention to how that person is speaking, how they're carrying themselves, and whether or not they appear to be connecting with the audience or talking over the audience. And what I mean by that is they're talking about the bride and groom in a very personal way, or are they talking in more of a fake voice saying the same thing that you can tell they say at every wedding the same way, and they don't really care, but they're trying to pretend that they do. You can tell that when you watch for that, but you have to be actively looking to see that. And if you are not actively looking to see it, it'll go right by you, and you won't realize till your wedding day that this particular DJ has called you the bride and groom for the 12th time in this 4th sentence in a row, And table number 15 has now turned bride and groom into a drinking game every time he calls you bride and groom because he doesn't know your name.
Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. That's really good advice. Here's the other thing. I mean, couldn't you, what's your feeling? All the bridal magazines and books we read encourage the brides to, quote, visit their prospective DJ in action at an actual wedding reception. I think that's the worst piece of advice I've ever heard in my life. Absolutely the worst.
I completely agree with you, Jodi. They made a whole movie out of it. It's called Wedding Crashers.
There you go. Yes.
And when I have a bride and groom who asks me if they can come watch me at a live wedding, I tell them very frankly that if they decide to hire me, I'm going to make them a very solemn promise. I will never invite strangers to come crash your wedding. And now that I've made that promise to you, guess what? I've made that promise to all my previous clients too. A wedding is a private function, and having somebody come crash and peek their head in to see what they want to see isn't really going to show you what's happening. Unless you sit there and watch the whole night or watch the moments in between like I spoke about where you can see the MC actually working, we're not going to get a full scope of what they do. You could show up while they're playing background music during dinner and people are sitting there enjoying some great music, and you go, wow, that sounds nice. Looks like they're doing a good job. But you still don't get a taste of what they're like as an MC, do you? And that's why I've been telling couples for years the best way to gauge the person you're considering hiring is meet with them face-to-face and then request to see uncut footage of the way they carry themselves as an MC live on the mic in front of a wedding audience. Because that's the footage that will make or break your decision and make it very clear about the capabilities of the person you're talking to.
Right. And what about references from, say, the hotel or wedding coordinators? Would that make a difference if there's no uncut footage?
Well, I think it can help. Those things can always help. But in today's world, it's not that hard to have the footage. And it's my particular opinion that somebody who doesn't want to show you footage has something to hide. There's no reason they shouldn't be able to supply something. They could have a friend come along and tape it on their iPhone these days. It's really not that difficult to get footage if you're really sincerely looking to do it. And the truth is, any wedding entertainer worth their salt should already be taping their performances themselves just so they can go back and evaluate it and figure out how to improve for next time. If they're not doing that simple behavior alone, in my mind, that should be a warning flag that this is somebody who's not looking to improve. They think they've got this down, and they don't need to go back and review what they've done so they can get to a better performance level. I learned that a long time ago when I did radio. Listen to your air checks. Listen to them over and over again. Listen to how you sound. Listen to the way you're coming across. And it forces you to have to evaluate what's working and what's not so you can get better at your craft. And so I think anybody who can't deliver that, and really, honestly, in my opinion, has something to hide. Photographers, when they want to show brides and grooms what they do, they pull out their albums. And yet DJs, when they want to show brides and grooms what they do, they pull out reference letters and music lists. Show me some footage. I want to see you live on the mic in front of a wedding audience. I want to see how well you carry yourself in that position because that person represents me in front of all my guests for the whole night.
Sure.
And that person is going to make a bigger impression about me to my friends and family than any other professional I'm going to hire.
Got it. And I got to be honest with you, you and Andy Ebon, the two of you, Andy is a wedding marketing guru. The two of you actually got me to do, my YouTube videos. Now, I could tell you that I don't have too much uncut video, but owning a video company, I certainly have access to it. I mean, my big thing is I'm crazy about the testimonial, but I'm not crazy about the testimonial that says Jodi Harris was absolutely fantastic. It was great. I want to know why Jodi Harris or Peter Mary was great. What did they do? What did they do to make your wedding unique? And I think that carries a lot of weight too, because I saw when I saw yours, I immediately at Wedding MBA, I immediately went out and bought a flip cam. You're the reason why I do that. Andy was telling me for years to do it, but when I saw yours up on the screen, I'm like, oh, that's freaking genius.
Well, it does make a difference when people can see a happy, satisfied client who's raving in detail about why what you did was great. But here's another thing to consider, too. YouTube videos are great for getting some promotional information out there and building search engine traffic. But YouTube also offers the option to put up footage that is listed as unpublished. I have lots of unpublished videos that people will never find because I have to provide the link for you to see it. And I've got those up there so that if a client calls me and wants to see something specific from what I've done, I can pull that footage and send them a link, and they can watch it right now. But I don't have to worry about the general public seeing it, because maybe I don't want the general public to see it or other DJs to see it until I'm ready for them to. So I just booked a wedding recently that's going to be happening in Omaha. The bride and groom have 8 kids between them, and their kids are their wedding party. I did a wedding in early October down in Corpus Christi, Texas, where the bride and groom had a similar situation. And so they used their kids as their wedding party. And so I took the whole uncut grand entrance, put it on YouTube, and sent a link to the next couple in May, and they got to see uncut footage of what I did for a similar situation. And they loved it. And so being able to show them that uncut footage and having it all ready is just one of the facets of being prepared to showcase what you do.
That's great. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna take advantage of that. I mean, I'm up to almost 200. I think over 200 testimonials, Peter. Thanks to you and that Wedding MBA conference. Thank you.
My pleasure.
One of the things I want to touch base with you is on presentation. And I'm not just talking about taking a shower and doing your hair and making sure you don't stink, because that's a given. We should hope. But this is, we are talking, brides, you got to look. But what I'm talking about specifically is the presentation of your gear, your equipment. Mm-hmm. My biggest pet peeve is seeing something on a table that looks like the closeout table at Radio Shack.
I would agree with you. In fact, one of the things that we tend to cite people for when they turn in their application of the Wed Guild is they'll have DJ equipment set up on a table, but there's no facade on top of the table so you can see all of their gear. And it just doesn't look attractive. And so we'll tell them, send us new pictures when you've got a facade, and that looks a lot nicer. Brides will spend an inordinate amount of money on flowers, uplighting, and other forms of decor to make their room look amazing. And then DJs will come in and go, boom, there's my gear. And they'll have cables hanging out and wires everywhere, and they'll have drinks on the table that you can see, and it just doesn't look professional. When I travel, I'll often use gear that goes on the table, but it has a facade, so you can't see anything. You have to come back behind my booth to see what the equipment actually looks like. Because the truth is, nobody cares what my equipment looks like. All they care is what I can do with it, the results I can create. The booth I use for my standard receptions is a custom-built booth that folds out and has draping around it. It looks very pretty, but it doesn't look like a table, and it doesn't look like a booth with gear on it. You have to come actually look and inspect to find where the gear is. And part of the reason for thinking about that is too often the person who's providing the entertainment of the wedding is only thinking about what they need to do. They're not thinking about how it impacts everything else that's going on in that room. And for a bride to spend all that money and time and energy creating a certain look, to then have one part of the room that just looks like an ugly sore compared to everything else she's worked so hard to create, shows a lack of forethought on the part of the entertainment and not recognizing that this is typically a formal event that usually has a theme. In fact, one of the best I've ever seen, Jodi, my friend Andy Austin in Dallas, Texas, created a facade that he put on the table around his gear that had slots in it where you can slide in a different cover. And he would get fabric-appointed covers that went in them, and he could get them to match the bridesmaids' dresses.
Wow.
So his booth would match the bridesmaids' dresses. How cool is that?
Absolutely.
So that's what we look for, and that's what we encourage brides to look for. Look for pictures of what the equipment looks like. Does it look like an eyesore, or does it look like it complements what's happening in the room?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can remember one wedding where they actually used a tea stand, a server's tea stand, and the DJ set his gear up. Beautiful hotel, 5-star hotel. And here are images, a top wedding photographer, Peter, top wedding photographer in the industry, takes these beautiful photos. And what is in the background but the tea stand, not the tea stand, but the X stand, server tray, the server tray with the DJ gear on it. I mean, oh my God, that's just horrible. You that's so important to see, what it looks like set up in the room. It really is.
Yeah. It really comes back to recognizing that as the person who's providing the entertainment, we need to have a full understanding of what's important to the bride, not just what's important to get our job done. And if we have a fuller understanding of what's important to that bride, then we're going to be more proactive about matching the theme and the look, and that goes to the way we're dressed, too. I believe that every professional MC at a wedding that's a formal event should be dressed in a tuxedo, probably a tuxedo that looks different from the groomsmen, probably a tuxedo that looks different from the waitstaff. I usually wear black on black on black. I got that idea from my good friend Andy Austin. But if it's less than formal, then you match what they're wearing. If it's a theme, then you match the theme.
Yes.
I did a wedding that was all Disney characters. I was the Mad Hatter.
That's so cool. That's you, Peter. That's totally you, the Mad Hatter. I have a question for you because this comes up a lot. Where is the best place to station your DJ in the ballroom?
I would say right in the middle of the dance floor. No, I'm kidding. I think that it's very important to have your dance floor in the middle of the room, and if you can put your DJ or your band on one edge of that dance floor so they can provide the proper amplification to really get that dance floor pumping when the time comes, that makes a huge difference. If you put that dance floor in the center of the room but put the DJ in a corner far away, there's going to be people seated at tables who are going to start to get very angry because they're between the speakers and the dance floor. So it's very important to put the dance floor in a central place so the guests feel more connected, and it's also very important to make sure your entertainment, or at least the entertainment speakers, can be on one edge of that dance floor for sure. Now, some rooms require more. I saw a ballroom that had 400 people in it. They had a dance floor right in the center. The DJ was on one corner of the dance floor with both speakers, and that wasn't enough. He should have had both speakers spread out on either corner of the dance floor, and then he should have had two additional speakers thrown out to the far corners for zone sound, so that when he made his opening announcements, everybody could hear him. And unfortunately, because he didn't have the right setup for that room with 400 people, he was never able to get their attention effectively, and that really had a negative impact on the party.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that falls into the category, again, we were talking about presentation. So, where you put your DJ booth is definitely very important. And the whole sound thing, the amplification, the sound, because that's the biggest thing. It drives me crazy when these facilities don't know how to center or where to put the DJ booth, and they always sit the old people right next to the speakers. And just always.
Yeah. It's almost like it's a plot against us, isn't it?
It is. Grandma, as soon as I see those senior citizens coming, I'm like, oh, tell me you didn't put them. They're not going to sit right next to the speakers. And if it's assigned seating, it's something that the brides really need. And the brides are listening to the show. It's something that you need to consider. You need to consider where you seat the senior citizens, at your wedding reception. Because no matter where they sit, it's always going to be loud.
I totally agree, Jodi. It's very true, and that's something that can be planned for ahead of time, and they can be placed in a different position where they're a good distance away from the speakers. Those speakers are going to get loud during the grand entrance. Those speakers are probably going to get loud later during dancing.
Sure.
But also one of the things to keep in mind is what's being brought to deliver that is something that should be weighed. I'm not a big proponent of DJs selling themselves based on the gear that they bring. However, I think professional grade equipment is extremely important. Whether they're bringing in JBL speakers or what I prefer, the Bose L1s, they should be bringing in something that can provide the proper amplification and sound good without hurting people's ears and without distorting so you can't understand what's being said. I've seen footage of DJs and toasts being given on a microphone, and you can't hear the DJ or the toast because it sounds like they're talking through a microphone that has wax paper over it. And that's the sign of a bad, poor quality sound system and sound setup. Mm-hmm. So looking for quality sound is important. And once again, that's something you can verify on video. When you watch that video footage and you can hear what's being said, you can tell if their voice sounds clear or not. I'm a big fan of the Bose L1 system. I own 4 of the towers, and I've done weddings where, as I just described with the one, you had zone sound spread out to the far extremes. And I've done that before, and every person in the room could hear every word, but their ears weren't bleeding. And it wasn't like they were at a rock concert where they felt like they had put in earplugs.
Sure.
So making sure the person you're dealing with understands how to deliver that quality sound without blowing people's ears off is very important.
Yeah, because that seems to be the very first question I get when people are walking into a ballroom, and I kind of mingle with the guests a little bit in the beginning and just kind of say, hey, hi. And, the first thing I said, now, you're not going to play the music too loud, are you? I always get that. It's not like, hi, oh, are you our MC? No, the first thing I get is, you're not going to play that music too loud, are you? And I'm like, well, no. What kind of music are you going to play?
There's a reason why they ask that. They've been to a lot of weddings where that's been the norm. Whether it's a DJ or a band, one of the biggest complaints that we hear is the music was too loud. And you know what? I think that they're right. The music does need to be a certain volume to create dancing when the time comes, but during dinner, it should be loud enough to create background atmosphere. It shouldn't be interrupting conversation. People shouldn't feel like they're in a nightclub in Vegas and they have to shout to talk to the friend sitting next to them. And those are all valid questions that people will ask for the first time when they walk in, because they don't know who the bride and groom hired. They don't know if the bride and groom hired the same DJ they saw do the last 20 weddings they've seen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. That's what I think. That's what I think. It's also the same thing when we all try to sell ourselves, and our brides, the very first question they ask us when we answered the phone is, "How much do you charge?" Because it's a question that they don't know what else to start the conversation with. Right?
That's very true. Most brides, when they're shopping for a DJ, have never hired one before. They don't know what they should be spending. They've probably read some articles online that have given them some guides as to how much they should spend for each category. And they probably talked with a couple of girlfriends who hire DJs as well and got an idea of what they charge. And so it's always an interesting conversation with a bride on the phone when you want to try and schedule an appointment to really find out what they're looking for. And their first question is, how much do you charge? But I don't blame them for asking the question. The reality is, though, that until they actually see the full scope of what is possible and what can be delivered, their understanding of the value they're going to receive or be disappointed in will not be clear to them until their wedding day, if they don't take the time to actually sit down with some people and take some time to learn what the differences truly are. If you base your conversations on who you're going to hire based on getting a price quote first and foremost, you're going to have some very limited choices to choose from, because some of the better entertainers that are out there may charge more, but they also are not as likely to want to give you a quote up front because they don't know what you need yet. They don't know if they're going to need extra speakers. They don't know if you're going to want some lighting. There's all kinds of other factors that could be added in that could cost more. And until they know exactly what your needs are going to be, they really can't give you a full price quote. And the truth is, it wouldn't do you any good either, because you still don't know what makes them different from the DJ that charges $1,000 or the DJ who charges $2,000. So that's one of the reasons why I encourage brides to take the time to meet with several people and really find out what makes them different, because when you meet with them and learn what they're about and who they are and what their personality's like, you'll start to get a really clear picture of who you like, who you feel comfortable with, and who you can trust. And if they wind up being over your budget, if you find that this person is the one you know for sure can do the job, then maybe you can find some other places in your budget where you can trim back in order to afford the person you want. But you wouldn't have known that option was there if your only qualifying question was a price question. So it's imperative to take the time to meet with several people and get a well-rounded understanding of what they truly offer, because they're not apples and apples. Many of them are apples and oranges.
Right, absolutely. And if you're in a situation, for example, at Sight and Sound, we do a lot of destination weddings. I mean, if somebody can't take the opportunity to come into the office, specifically and say, meet with their DJ, are there any other recommendations? I mean, obviously, I guess spend time with them on the phone would be the best, and watch the videos. Yeah,
that's a good place to start. I've been using a really fantastic tool called Bride Live, which is kind of like Skype, but it allows me to meet with the bride and groom virtually through the internet by video, and it also allows me to videotape it so that I can go back and take notes on our conversation and have a real conversation instead of having to spend too much time writing stuff down. And with Bride Live, because I do weddings all over the country now, it actually provides a fantastic opportunity to really get to meet them, get to know them, see them, let them see me, and I can share video footage with them. I can show them pictures. If they would like, I can even bring up a former bride on a separate video from her home, and she can wave at them and tell them what she loved about my services. So using a tool like Bride Live is a fantastic way to connect with that bride who can't come in person. And the truth is, in today's world, more and more brides, even if they are in your local area, would prefer to meet virtually rather than get in their car and drive half an hour to your office.
Sure.
So I'm doing a lot more of my meetings that way. I still love doing the face-to-face whenever I can get it, but I'm finding the virtual meetings from something like Bride Live can be a huge benefit as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's very important that the bride does take the time to get to know the person. I mean, one of my favorite things is, all the social media tools that we have available now. I mean, somebody could follow your personality or your brand on Twitter, on Facebook, on Pinterest. I mean, we are so lucky to be in the, I guess, decade that we're in now because we have all these tools.
Yep. No, I agree. I'm a big fan of all those different social media tools, and I've been doing my best to try and expand my exposure on them. I still have a lot to learn about Twitter, but I love it. But I love Facebook. In fact, I just recently hired my very first bride to contact me only through Facebook.
Wow.
And it was funny the way that it happened. I had a picture pop up on my wall of a hand with an engagement ring on it and a note on it that said, "We're engaged." And I thought, why did that pop up on my wall? And then as I read further in the comments, one of my brides from 2000, who just happened to be this particular bride's older sister, said, "Congratulations. Now it's time to call Peter Mary." And she tagged me. That's why it showed up on my wall. 3 days later, the bride, Eileen, sent me a message on Facebook, and we scheduled our meeting through Facebook, and she sent me her note to tell me I was hired through Facebook, and I'll be doing her wedding on October 19th out in Southern California.
That's great. What a great story. What a great story. I got to tell you, Peter, I was on your website, Merry Weddings, MERRY, merryweddings.com. And, I was looking at your contact page and you have a plethora of ways to contact you. You're on like every social media. I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, I'm learning stuff from watching you.
Some of them I'm still expanding and learning, but yeah, I've got Facebook on there. Obviously, I've got Twitter on there. I actually have 3 Twitter feeds. You can find me at Peter Mary on Twitter. You can find me at Merry Weddings, which is MERRY. And you can find me at TBWRE Book. My book is the best wedding reception ever. So you take the initials and then book, TBWRE Book. All 3 of those are Twitter feeds that I use. You can find me on LinkedIn, which I use mostly to network with other wedding professionals.
Sure.
But some of my brides and grooms contact me on that as well.
Absolutely.
Google Plus is still on the rise, so I've got that one going. Jodi, do you like Pinterest?
Oh, hello, yeah.
Well, so do all the other women out there. And the brides go to Pinterest to get their latest ideas for their weddings. So I've been learning to put more and more photos up on Pinterest. I use Instagram. I'm still learning how to use Flickr. I use Square to log in at various locations when I'm doing weddings and so forth.
Wow.
I use WordPress for my blogging, Tumblr for blogging as well.
Sure.
I've got several YouTube channels. YouTube.com/Merry Weddings is the primary one for my entertainment service. YouTube.com/Peter Mary Jr. That's a JR at the end. Some Peter Mary in Scandinavia beat me to Peter Mary for YouTube.
I did find that on Skype. I found that guy, Peter. I found
that's my personal one that also has a lot of testimonials on it. And I have a Vimeo channel that I've used for my book. And then, of course, there's Wedding Wire, where you get all those great reviews. And Yelp has become one of the biggest ways that people are searching these days. So I created a Yelp presence, and I started getting contacts through Yelp almost instantaneously.
That's great. I'm going to give you one more. And I'm going to give the brides one more. My tip for the day is Vine, the Vine. You got to check out the app called Vine, VINE. It's incredible. It's Instagram for video. So,
wow.
Yeah. So go check that out. Especially if you have an iPhone, check that out. So Peter, before I wrap this thing up, I want to ask you what is the biggest piece of advice you can give somebody who is looking to hire a DJ? And we talked about a lot, but if there's that one thing that you can think of, what would it be?
I would say the number one thing you'd want to look for is somebody who, when you're meeting with them, really honestly takes the time to get to know you. If they spend all their time telling you what they can do to get people dancing or what they can do to make your wedding fun, but they haven't taken any time at all to get to know you, that should be a red flag, because the person who's getting to know you is concerned about making it truly unique about the two of you and making it your unique celebration. And so I'd be on the lookout for somebody who's really invested in trying to get to know as much as they can about you. And that can seem a little strange. You're going to meet with an entertainer and they're asking you how you met and how you fell in love and how you got engaged and what your families are like and all this. And you're thinking, what does this have to do with dancing at my wedding? It has everything to do with it. Because the more they know about your story, the more they can intertwine that into every moment of your celebration and make it so unique and so memorable that your guests are going to be walking away saying, that was the best wedding reception ever.
That is great. Great advice, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I want to take a special thank you to Peter Merry Weddings. It's Merry Weddings. Peter has the book, The Best Wedding Reception Ever. It is available on iBooks, so you can get it on iBooks. It's $9.95. Download it onto your iPad. It's going to be the best $10 investment you've ever made. So, Peter, again, thank you so much for being part of our show. I look forward to sharing many a limo ride with you in the future.
I will. I'll be looking forward to seeing you when I come out for the Wedding MBA, because we're definitely going to have some fun then again.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Jodi Harris. I am the CEO of Fun. To follow me on Twitter, just follow Jodi, JODI, HARRIS. Remember, the way you can help us and the way you can help all of us here is by subscribing to our show, downloading our show, and writing a review. I would be more than happy to read your review on the air. I am Jodi Harris, CEO of Fun in Las Vegas. Make it fantastic, and I will see you soon.